This week on the Internet Cafe, the Grim Reaper on the web. This is the City of the Silent, a website with information about cemeteries. Meet Joe Malloy. He's a deadhead who built the ultimate online shrine to Jerry Garcia. If you're into animals, we'll show you the virtual pet cemetery. And meet Michelle Weaver. She used to be an educator. Now she runs a very alive website called Toontown. And if you have a macabre sense of humor, we'll show you the Wells Pop Cult Death Pool. The Grim Reaper on the web, this week at the Internet Cafe.
The Internet Cafe is brought to you by Z-Auction, the live online shopping experience. Additional funding from PC Connection and Mac Connection, the catalog and online superstore with PC and Mac products, toll-free technical support, and overnight delivery. And by Windows Magazine, delivering desktop, enterprise, and internet computing news, reviews, features, and how-tos for a Windows world, because the world runs on Windows. Additional funding from SoftSource Incorporated, publishers of Pro One software, educational software for young adults.
Well, we're talking about the Grim Reaper on the web, the subject of death on the web, which you would think it'd be kind of morbid, but some of these sites are actually kind of funny, aren't they?
Yeah, I think we're having a little fun here with death, believe it or not. There's a couple of games out there where you can actually try to pick the next 5 celebrities that are going to die, and if you get it right, you win
certainly
prizes.
Irreverent, there's no question about that.
Yeah. Who would you pick?
Well, that could go on forever, but I bet there was a few people didn't pick last year, that's for sure.
I mean, you think you can sort of, is that an appropriate thing to have on the web, all this sort of kind of sick stuff about
actually,
death?
you know what? I think a lot of people don't like to talk about it, so I think if you can find a vehicle, whether it's comedy or whether it's more emotional, like the virtual pet cemetery for me,
yeah.
I think it's good. Any way that you can express your feelings is a good thing.
I agree with you. You know, I mean, death, I mean, there's a lot of grief and grieving in death,
Yep.
and people get through that by talking it out with other people. I think the net really provides an opportunity for people
Sharing the
to
experience.
get comfortable and get, you know, get this the pain off your chest. Or,
A good example is the Jerry Garcia shrine.
Exactly,
You know, people
exactly.
were so upset when he died.
people
and
have a need to
we're
do
gonna-
that, and the web gives them that opportunity.
Right.
So, Joel, you've created a website. It's called the City of the Silent, and it's, I guess from my perspective, the one-stop shop for anybody who's interested in graveyard histories and the whole anthropological aspect of death and dying. Tell me a little bit about the things that I would find if I went to your website.
In developing City of the Silent, I've tried to put an emphasis on cemetery culture, remembering that cemeteries are places primarily for the living, places where we engage with the fact of death. And so my site includes things from a reader's sharing board to a collection of epitaphs to a discussion of cemetery symbolism, a timeline of history, and even a reader's sharing page where people can tell about what they have discovered. Because that's one of the most interesting things about taking part in any field of knowledge is sharing your discoveries.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting because when I went to your site, I guess I had this preconceived idea that the topic of cemeteries was a morbid one and somewhat twisted, and I expected to see vampires, and that's not at all the experience that I had. I mean, when I went there, as you say, there was a discussion about symbolism and depending on different cultures, the different aspects of it. So from my perspective, it was a really fascinating site. What's the feedback been from the people who've gone to your site? What were the experiences that they talked about?
Many people find it wonderful and are very pleased to find a site where they can realize their interest in cemeteries. Some people have been brought up to think that interest in cemeteries is very sick. And for this reason, I coined the term taphophilia, which is literally love of tombstones, to distinguish us from necrophiliacs.
Yeah, which is a completely different thing.
Which is something, something we can't discuss.
So typically, in England, I remember as a child, we used to go to the graveyards and we'd do rubbings of the tombs. And that's another thing that you've got at your website as well. So even for kids, that they could go and do tomb rubbings, and there's actually a...
Provided they take the proper precautions. I wouldn't do it on an old stone.
No, okay.
But on granite stones, it's just fine. Granite is very strong, but I think we need to be aware that with our old heritage, that some of the softer limestones and slates can be damaged by tombstone rubbing.
Now, another thing about your site is you had a massive list of links to other sites, and it also broadened my horizon in seeing the scope of the things that are out there that are not so much ghoulish, but actually educational and informative sites. What are some of the sort of the highlight sites that you'd like to to mention?
Well, I like Larry Kestenbaum's The Political Graveyard, which is a list of politicians buried around the country. I like the Orange County Coroner's page, which gives you a different view on death.
So the coroner's page, what's that about?
Well, one of the most interesting features is they have a list with pictures and dental records of missing persons they have found over the years who still remain unidentified. And I find it impressive that out of all the millions of people in Orange County, there only seem to be about 40 people who are unknown.
That's pretty amazing when you consider the number of people that go missing. What are some other sites that you liked?
Wendell White's Cemetery is a fascinating site that deals with a small black American cemetery in New Jersey that Wendell discovered and just started doing research on and found out things about their farming, how they lived. These were free blacks before the Civil War, and it's revealing an angle of history that is not often looked into.
No, it's really interesting. It's so true, because going to your site, I saw a lot of things that gave me some insight into the way people lived over periods of time, and talking about epidemics and children's graveyards and so on and so forth. Really fascinating stuff.
For URLs of today's featured websites, check out the Internet Cafe site at cmptv.com.
Joe, you've created Jerry Garcia's Hate Street Shrine on the web, and
Right.
I got to ask you a question. I think you're kind of a Jerry Garcia aficionado at this point. Is Jerry really dead, or is he still out there somewhere?
He's actually either on the web as source code, I think, or he is out there in some other fashion in everyone's hearts.
Definitely.
Some people have said he might be in their
Definitely.
lava lamps, but that's another story.
Right. He was really a beloved character, and
Right,
I'm sure
exactly.
that's what probably prompted you to create this site. How did this begin?
Well, it was actually the day that Jerry Garcia died, which was a sad day. It was actually a sad day on the net, and I was at work and decided at the end of the day that I'd go out to the Hate Street shrines that I knew were going to be happening at
Right.
that time.
And people were out there on the streets.
People were out there, so I went and I took pictures of that with my digital camera and tried to capture the event as much as I could. Went back home, put that on the web, linked it up with various Grateful Dead sites that immediately gave feedback, and then I got a lot of feedback from other people that were mourning his death all over the world.
People came to this site. People were
Right.
interested. Now, you said it was a sad day on the net when that happened. Now, the
Right.
sort of the myth or the stereotype would be sort of that, deadheads, maybe they're not really into technology.
Well,
and
I disagree.
Right,
I
so
mean,
it
they
sounds
were.
like
I think I ran into it, and it's evident in my guest book, which I have. There are a lot of.
So people sign in when they
A lot
come
of
to your
people
site?
sign in and leave what they do, and a lot of people were involved with the internet technology at that time.
Right.
A lot of very intelligent people that were also deadheads.
Okay, so it
And-
is a stereotype.
Right,
definitely.
exactly.
Now you said that you had a deep caring for Jerry Garcia. So how have you memorialized him on this site? What are some of the things that are up there?
Well, it's sort of a work in progress. My site. It didn't really just end with his death. Then it's almost
Ongoing.
It's an ongoing
Right.
thing where I'm also I'm getting whoever signs in the guest book, as well as I'm adding various other multimedia things that I add to the site to amuse people, to make people laugh, to make people have fun with the site.
Photos are something. and-
Photos,
yeah.
Shockwave, I've got some Java, I've got various other types of
So
formats,
animations
some
and
songs, some
Right.
real
Now, that's
audio.
that's a question, actually. I
Right.
mean, obviously, Grateful Dead, the music was their thing.
Right, exactly.
So, do you actually have Grateful Dead music up there?
Well, I've got real audio of the last show
Really?
that he did, or that they did in Chicago.
How'd you get that?
Got it through a friend who's also a Grateful Dead fan who had some real audio that he digitized
Wow.
of the site.
Okay.
That was one.
So that's worth checking out right there.
Well, that's worth checking out.
Yeah.
You can actually listen to the last songs that the Dead played together as a band while you look at these photos. There's links to other Grateful Dead sites. There's some Shockwave. I try to make it as entertaining as possible, where people can just kind of look and watch it. And there's some other Shockwave which I did recently, which you can actually touch parts of Jerry Garcia's face, and different guitar riffs come up, and you can
Oh, really?
just sort of have an improvisational Grateful Dead Jerry experience of yourself.
Right. Well, that sounds like the Summer of Love all over again.
Right,
We'll have
exactly.
to go check it out.
Right, exactly. Also, speaking of the Summer of Love, I've got a QuickTime VR of the Love in Golden Gate
Oh,
Park.
the whole concert
The
as
30th.
well.
Well, not the whole concert.
But-
just a view of what that was,
And you
if
can
you're
rotate.
and if you're sharp, you'll be able to see that there is actually a picture of Jerry Garcia in the crowd.
Okay.
if you use the QuickTime VR.
So we'll go check
thing.
it. We'll go check
Right.
it out and see if we can find him in the crowd.
Right, exactly.
For URLs of today's featured websites, check out the Internet Cafe site at cmptv.com.
Some of the so-called death sites on the web are really very educational, historical, and downright innovative. One of them is a site called Toontown. And Michelle, that was your creation, and I'm glad you're here tonight.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, where'd you get the strange idea to build a virtual cemetery on the web?
One of our projects included a genealogical research, and during the process of going through the cemeteries and finding our study
So
subjects,
you were actually going through real cemeteries doing work like that?
many cemeteries.
Yeah.
And it became very interesting to find that we became more and more curious, not so much about our current studies, but the people around them. We saw headstones there
Yeah.
with people we had no idea who they were about.
So you see a
All the-
name and years and you don't know who they
Exactly.
were.
So we thought, well, heck, why don't we do a 3D VR rendition
Yeah.
of cemeteries? And in its virtual form, you're able to
Learn about these famous dead people.
exactly.
Now let's talk about the 3D VR part of it, because that is really cool. Because when I went there, you can actually walk through the cemetery, make a left, go down this, and kind of explore. It becomes a real adventure.
It's very fun. You go through, there are certain paths that you can take, and you are able to walk up to and around all of the tombstones.
Yeah.
There's also a tour in Tombtown that you can take. It's a click of a button, and it flies you around and shows you all the different elements that you can use.
All
in
right, so let's say
Tombtown.
we're walking through Toontown right now, and I come across the Marilyn Monroe tomb.
Right.
Now I can click on that stone and find out about her?
Yes, her image comes up in a text, and you have her birth and her death. It gives a lot of information about her childhood, how she grew up, the impact that she had on the people around her, and the impact that the people around her had on herself. And we also tried very hard at making sure that we had information that is not generally well known in the
Yeah.
public concerning each individual resident.
What kind of people have you included in your cemetery? I mean, I saw Albert Einstein and Bela Lugosi and Marilyn. How many people and what kinds of people do you select?
We have very famous people. We have celebrities, authors, scientists, historians, Plato, for example.
Yeah.
And we also have everyday people. We have regular people like you and I who wish to bury themselves or a loved one or a
You
pet,
can bury yourself
perhaps.
even if you're alive?
Even if you're alive.
Okay.
You can be immortal.
Get all the glory
But-
without having to
Exactly.
die.
One person, for example, thought it would be cute to bury themselves as an atheist, and they said, off to find off for myself.
Yeah. But seriously, I mean, if a loved one I know actually dies, I could then go to the website and say, I want this person to be in Toontown.
Yes. You purchase a plot, and you purchase a headstone, you provide the obituary, and anything that you want to write about this person, anything that you want the world to know
Yeah.
about your loved one, they'll be able to
That's cool.
put
So people
online.
exploring these famous people could bump into my friend and click and find out who he or she was also.
Exactly, right next to any famous person. And you have the option of being buried next to anybody and making special requests.
All right, now
as
one of the
well.
cool things, you have a Princess Diana memorial there. Tell us about that.
Right. When Princess Diana was killed, we were one of the first websites to provide a memorial for her. People wrote in and gave their sentiments and remembrances. We compiled a book and sent it off to
Wherever you send
wherever
it off
I
to.
sent it off
Yeah.
to. And in the meantime, we decided that a memorial would be feasible. You can't go and visit her grave. So we set up
Yeah.
this memorial. You can visit the memorial, and then you can still write your remembrances, condolences.
So you can actually, I guess the next step is virtual funerals. I mean, you can actually have people around the world signing a condolence book for just a normal person.
That's absolutely true. And we've had several inquiries to do just that.
Wow. And how do you add people every week? I mean, a famous person dies, do they get into Toontown?
It is very time consuming, and
Yeah.
we do as much of it as we can. It's not updated as much as we'd like, obviously. But yeah, famous people die, they get in there. And there's still so many people out there that we can include. We're in the process of building several more cemeteries that would be specific to groups.
Well, it's
like-
really well done. Toontown. Thanks, Michelle.
For URLs of today's featured websites, check out the Internet Cafe site at cmptv.com.
So Christian, celebrity deaths are sort of a huge phenomenon, something everybody's fascinated about. You see the tabloids in the supermarket, they just never seem to stop. Of course, why wouldn't it come to the web as well? Right. Now, tell me about, I've heard these things, death pools, and I think they're kind of all over the web. What is a death pool?
It's pretty basic. You know, if you're in a pool, you pick famous people, celebrities, they're on your team, and if one of them dies, you win.
So it's a game, basically,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're playing lottery with
Yeah,
celebrities'
basically.
lives.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess.
Right. So who plays these kind of games, and what are the rules?
Well, a lot of, I mean, my pool has a lot of people, and I'm not the only pool by a stretch. So there's
Okay.
hundreds or thousands of people playing.
Out there.
The rules on mine are pretty simple. You pick 5 people.
Okay.
One of them dies, and you win. You win the pool.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. Now, what is the definition of who you pick? What is it? A celebrity? Does it have to be a movie
Yeah.
star? What?
It's kind of intentionally vague. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically someone has to be well known or a famous celebrity, and you know, some people are obvious, big movie stars and
Mm-hmm. Right.
politicians,
Right.
but you know, some people are a little more questionable, and since it's my pool, I choose
Right.
whether or not they're famous
Right.
enough.
Right.
I haven't turned anybody down. If they can prove who they are, then I let it go.
Then I let them go. Okay. Now, when people pick, are they sort of going for the easy targets? You know, the maybe the older, the infirm, or is there like more points if you get somebody that wasn't expected or something?
I don't
like
do
that?
don't do more or less points. So, you know, right now, just about all the people. I thought that just about all the people who are close to death had been picked, but then somebody dies that nobody had. But
Okay.
Frank Sinatra and Bob Hope are probably the two biggest.
right.
Katharine Hepburn.
Okay,
You know, so
right.
old people that are really well known.
Yeah, yeah.
And then people tried to go with kind of dark horse picks.
Uh-huh.
Someone a little bit younger that maybe
Partier.
you yeah.
kinda
So like
drugs
Johnny
and
Depp
uh-huh.
and people like that.
Okay, Robert
Young.
Downey Jr.
Exactly,
Someone
he's
maybe
picked.
he's known with drugs or
Right.
something like that.
You know, that might have a little more higher risk factor.
Right, right. Okay. Now, does someone get involved with this? They just come to your site and sign up, or?
Well, right now it's only for people who are on the well, which
Okay.
is subscription only. But I'm
Okay.
going to either open up this pool, start a new pool, web wide. I'm in a couple of other
Wow.
pools, and you get a lot of people, and you get a wider
So
variety.
you
of people,
think it's going to be popular?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the one site that I go to all the time even has community, has message boards.
Oh, so
Talk
people
about,
are,
you know, is this person dead? What do you think about this person? So, you know, people talk about it. People
yeah,
are interested.
Yeah.
So.
All right, now, Christian, I got to say one thing. This sounds a little bit sick. Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm just curious. Are the people playing it? Is it fun? Is it sick? Is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little both.
What do you
I think it's a little both. You know, we don't play for money.
Okay.
I think that would be a little bit too
Right.
much. I think if I won, I would feel bad if I
Right.
made money off somebody's death.
Right, and especially if it was a lot of money and it might
Yeah.
inspire someone to go out
Exactly.
and actually
And then, you know, then
commit some
I could
crime.
probably get in trouble.
Right,
You know?
so you
But,
don't want to do that. So what can you win?
Basically, when somebody wins, the other people in the pool send them a trinket, whether
Okay.
it's a keychain or you know, like a funny book or just some random.
So
thing.
nothing, yeah.
Nothing real big, just a little kind of memento.
Right, right. And I also saw up on your site there's some statistics about, you know, sort of what people pick. What are the most popular category that people
I
pick?
think actors and musicians. Actors because they're well known,
Yeah.
and musicians rock stars. You know,
Right,
they have a history
right.
of dying young.
Kind of makes sense.
Exactly.
And what's sort of your third pick on that list?
Politicians, a lot of the presidents and ex-presidents,
Right.
and people in the Senate, and European presidents,
Right.
and things like that.
Right,
So.
makes sense. I
Yeah.
also saw you have some of your fans' poetry and stuff up there. Can you repeat the John Denver poem?
Sure.
I
One
saw?
of the Doug Moody is the guy's name who writes these poems for me, and his John Denver poem said, "Teach me Rocky Mountain High, just don't teach me how to fly." So.
Okay. On that note, let's go check out the site.
Okay.
For URLs of today's featured websites, check out the Internet Cafe site at cmptv.com.
So, Steve, you've got a website. It's the Virtual Pet Cemetery,
Yeah.
and you and your wife work on this website. Now, what prompted you to start a pet cemetery?
I've always been interested in death and how people react to death under different situations. And the web, at the time we started, it was the very beginning of the web, and we wanted to start a new community to see how people would deal with death in this new environment of the web and how they could express themselves.
So now, it was an experiment, basically.
It was an experiment.
To find out how people dealt with death.
We had no idea what we would get. When we first put it up, the first day we had 3 responses.
Wow.
And it was amazing. We didn't think people would respond for 3 months. We didn't even know how they found our website, let alone that they were responding so quickly.
So now, why would you pick a pet cemetery, though? Why would you pick an animal to...
Because, well, a human cemetery we thought was too close to home. And personally, I wouldn't want to share the feelings about my relatives with people on the net. But people are much more open when it comes to pets. They'll say things that you wouldn't go into your office and just talk on and on and on about a relative who died. It would make everybody uncomfortable.
Right.
But people are more open to speaking about their pets.
So as the experiment goes on, obviously it's grown pretty substantially. What's the outcome? What were the summaries of your experiment?
It's very interesting. What we found is that people deal with death in different ways. Some people are very reserved about it and don't want to reveal too much. Other people say everything.
Right.
Some people are very humorous about the whole situation and want to treat it in a light way, in almost a fun way. And other people are very serious.
So people react differently to it as well. I mean, I know when I went to the site, and I've recently lost a pet in our family, and I was getting kind of emotional reading some of these things. There were some pretty sensitive stories that were being told.
Yes, that's the other thing that's very interesting about the Virtual Pet Cemetery is it's an emotional site.
Definitely.
Most sites on the web today are informational. They give you information. This really, they're stories about people's lives.
Yeah.
And how they deal with such a tragedy. And it's so emotional. My wife, who works on the cemetery with me, she cries when she reads the epitaphs.
So now tell me, if I wanted to post an epitaph for my pet, how would I go about doing that?
It's very simple. There's a page which says submit epitaph, and then you just send us email.
So it's that simple?
That simple.
And I can post my picture of my pet and do all those things as well?
We don't post everything.
Okay.
And that's a very delicate situation because we want epitaphs that we don't want somebody to just slap something down there and put it up. It would be disrespectful to all the other people who have put their epitaphs on the site. So if we feel somebody's serious and they've really thought about what they're writing, we'll definitely post it. We just want to make sure that it's appropriate for the site.
Absolutely. It is a sensitive topic. What are some of the best stories that come to mind for you that have been posted at the website?
There are so many good ones, and it's a very personal decision,
right,
what you like. I like the touch turtle, which is the very first.
That's the first story, yeah. That was great.
I thought it was wonderful, and I thought it had, for me, it was tragic, but it was funny also, and it was very touching.
And I think the net on that story was about this particular type of turtle that didn't actually die.
Right. It's the story about a kid who has a turtle, and he thinks his turtle has died. And so he digs a grave in the backyard and he buries the turtle. And then a couple months later, he finds out that turtles hibernate in the winter. And well, hopefully the turtle crawled out of the hole. But
yeah, but you never know. But there's lots of other stories as well. It's a great site. Thanks so much, Steve.
So do you have a favorite death website now, Andrew?
It's kind of sad to say your favorite death website.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is weird.
It is. But, you know, the Grateful Dead site I thought was pretty neat. It was kind of a real memorial, and it was a place where people could go. I didn't know that the deadheads or the hippies, if you will, really intersect with the web culture. You wouldn't think they're online, but they really were.
They would.
They really were a big part of it. So I thought that was good, and I thought it was fun to play the celebrity game too.
You think that's funny? Who's going to die next?
I think it's kind of funny, and if I had picked Sonny Bono, maybe I would have been a winner too.
Well, so. I guess you have to loosen up a little bit about the subject, right? I mean, it's too depressing, so people have to have fun with it. What do you think?
For me personally, I just recently lost a member of our family. One of our pets was killed by a car, and I thought that the Virtual Pet Cemetery was a really great idea because you don't often get the chance to talk about how you feel about losing a pet, and it's a great place to be able to find community there.
Dealing with death is a ritualized kind of thing, and this sort of helps create that ritual.
It's really good.
Well, Toontown I thought was great too because very educational, great interface. I mean, the subject really wasn't death, but history, so I thought that was a good example. If you'd like any more information about any of the websites we saw tonight, check out our website at cmptd.com, and we'll see you here next week at the Internet Cafe.
The Internet Cafe is brought to you by Z-Auction, the live online shopping experience. Additional funding from PC Connection and Mac Connection, the catalog and online superstore with PC and Mac products, toll-free technical support, and overnight delivery. And by Windows Magazine, delivering desktop, enterprise, and internet computing news, reviews, features, and how-tos for a Windows world, because the world runs on Windows. Additional funding from SoftSource Incorporated, publishers of Pro One software, educational software for young adults. To purchase a videotape copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-310-7850. Please specify the show number and the topic.